that Epstein was an Israeli intelligence asset. How did he get there? That man's name is Robert Maxwell. Whoever you may be, might even be a journalist. You may just know the tip of the iceberg. Hello and welcome back to Decoded by Far Media World. I'm Fatma Zuhur and I'm going to be your host for this show. So this was supposed to be our part 2 of the Human Shields episode, but there has been a story that is exploding right now. It's not trending, it's exploding. Why? Because it's evolving. Newer things are coming out, things that nobody thought would happen. And who is this about? None other than Jeffrey Epstein. So let's get into it.
I'm Jeffrey Edward Epstein, and my residence address is 6100 Red Hook Boulevard in Virgin Islands.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
A lot of people think they know a lot about the Jeffrey Epstein case, but that is absolutely not true. Whoever you may be, might even be a journalist. You may just know the tip of the iceberg. Because if that were not the case, why do you think every politician, every billionaire, every person in power, and not just in the US, across the globe, is working overtime to shut this story down, to control algorithm, to control search engines? This is also why it has taken us at Far Media so long to not only come out with the story, also to research it and actually get to the truth of what is fact and what is fiction. Now, for those of you who do not know, Jeffrey Epstein was a college dropout who then later turned into a billionaire financier, math and science teacher, and then ultimately a convicted pedophile. He had no financial license, yet he was advising billionaires and managing their money. He had no degree, no proper education, yet he was teaching at New York's most elite school, the Dalton School. Now I need you to remember this name, Donald Barr. He is the one who admitted Jeffrey Epstein into the Dalton School. He is also the father of the later Attorney General of Trump's term, who also oversaw Jeffrey Epstein's second conviction of the pedophilia case, and then his convenient suicide. Here's where it gets even stranger. Epstein was not just some person who was without a degree teaching at a school, even though that is completely unprecedented and strange. But like I said, if that is normal to you, he also had access to the world's most powerful people. I start with Bill Clinton. 26 flights on Epstein's private jet. Donald Trump, parties and photos, somewhat creepy conversations in those videos. British royalty, Prince Andrew, directly accused of sleeping with a minor, allegedly supplied by Jeffrey Epstein and his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who we will come to in just about a moment. Then also, Bill Gates, this huge philanthropist who, by the way, we don't have any actual evidence against that his communication with Epstein was, let's say, illegal or anything wrong, but it is worth noticing that he communicated with Epstein, allegedly, after his arrest, and was shady about it in multiple interviews. And here's my favorite, Ehud Barak, former Israeli prime minister, who basically used Epstein's New York City apartment, this super luxurious apartment, as if it says holiday home all the time. And then he later used the excuse that he was just investing in some startup. Yeah, okay. And then comes the creepiest one, Lex Wessner, Victoria's Secret head, who handed over complete power of attorney to Jeffrey Epstein. Now wait a second, who does that? Is Epstein Lexter's son? No. Frankly, you wouldn't even offer a complete power of attorney of your huge corporation to your actual son. And it's no coincidence that he had the power of attorney being a convicted pedophile of the kind of industry that Victoria's Secret was involved in. It's also alleged that this power of attorney was used for further trafficking of minors and seeing models in hotel rooms, which allegedly was also facilitated by his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Hold your thought, we're just coming to the Maxwell family. Now the question is, very important one. Where did Epstein come from? You don't just out of nowhere end up in the lap of these powerful people hiring you even though you are, a college dropout or whatever. It's alleged that Epstein was an Israeli intelligence asset.
So Maxwell introduces you. He says, here's this young guy. And did he go by the name Jeffrey Epstein or did he go by a different name?
I remember Epstein, Jeff Epstein.
Okay. Because he had a different passport that he was traveling in and out of.
That's right. But that came later.
Okay. So he says to you, here's this guy Jeffrey Epstein who I know from around.
And your Israeli bosses have approved.
Oh, okay.
Already approved.
So it came down from up above.
How did he get there? That man's name is Robert Maxwell. That is Ghislaine Maxwell's father. The woman I told you to not forget her name. Epstein was introduced into these elite circles initially by Robert Maxwell in the 1980s. The mainstream media is going to tell you that they met in the 1990s, but that is not true. They met in the 1980s, and we're going to get into the evidence just in about a few seconds. Robert Maxwell was most definitely an Israeli intelligence operative, and this is not some kind of dispute or alleged claim. And there is ample amount of evidence by Israeli intelligence officers who one might call them whistleblowers or, people who just want to tell the truth, have come out and fully disclosed this whole operation and this whole, let's say, exchange between Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein in the 1980s. Here's the evidence. Ari Ben Menashe, former Israeli intelligence officer, in an interview with Zev Shalev, spoke about the following. He said that Epstein met Maxwell in his office, or at least sometimes in France, sometimes in England. I can't completely confirm the location, so don't get me on that. But they met in the 1980s. Their discussions were about potentially involving Epstein in what Maxwell was already doing. A lot of intelligence work for Israel. He was very actively involved in establishing the state of Israel. He was working overtime, even with the arms trade and just everything that ensured that Israel was definitely formed, and particularly the way they wanted it to be formed. Epstein was then vetted by allegedly Mossad agents, and they actually turned out to say that he is not fully competent. He did not have the assets that it took for him to become an actual smart, sharp Israeli operative.
Senior agents, they weren't really competent to do very much. And so they found a niche for themselves, blackmailing American and other political figures.
For the Israelis?
Yeah.
So it's hard for people to understand why Israel would want to get blackmail on an American. I'm asking a question that I can answer it very probably, but for most people it's hard for them to think about Israel as being blackmailing their leaders in the United States. It's a very...
It was quite their MO. See, sleeping around is not the crime.
But then came Ghislaine Maxwell. Allegedly, she fell in love with him. And that was it for Robert Maxwell's beloved daughter. The father-daughter connection was more important than his actual mission to make sure that this man was an actual asset in terms of his might. But he had something that most of these agents didn't. He and Ghislaine actually had a niche. They had a niche for deviancy, for sexual deviancy. And they both played on that niche. They both decided to get together, fell in love in 1980s, and they perhaps, I'm guessing, convinced or just pitched this creepily to her father, Robert Maxwell, that they're gonna make an effort to create this blackmail ring where they would entrap allegedly huge politicians of the United States and other countries, depending on, what they need, and billionaires and influential figures to and trap them in a situation where they could use that leverage as blackmail. Now, obviously, conducting in sexual acts is not a legal crime, but actually having that with minors in pedophilia is a huge crime. And that is where they played at the weaknesses of these powerful people. Now, any sane person or person with a molecule of conscience would think, they would first think that this is sick, obviously, but then they would think, why would you need to blackmail your friends, the US, the UK, to help form Israel? They were actually helping form Israel the whole time. Let's say the 1940s, Israel was formed. Why, a few decades in between that, why would you want blackmail material of this magnitude, of a magnitude of trafficking, of pedophilia against your so-called friends? I have a theory. Unless you are going to go down the line and yourself, speaking as Israel, commit such heinous crimes that the minute any politician or leader raises their voice that, hey, this is wrong, even as your friend, I can't support this, or I gotta turn you in. You're like, no. Here's my leverage. I have this on you. Don't you dare speak up against me. And this is exactly what has been happening all through this year, past 2-3 years, where the whole world has been seeing that the West is saying, this is your moral standard and you have to uphold it and you have to behave a certain way and speak a certain way. And you have to be a civilized society. But suddenly when it comes to Israel, they're getting away with anything and everything. Why? Could this be just one of the reasons? Now, here's a very sick bombshell that not many people are talking about. Particularly because A, they can't. B, they're scared. Or C, the algorithm and the mainstream media literally shuts it down. I call this the DNA bombshell. The bizarre sickness of Jeffrey Epstein's scheme and how deep it goes. So Epstein was not just obsessed with pedophilia. He was obsessed with genetics and control. And I feel like this whole ring it's pretty obvious, has always been about control. He confessed to scientists and fellow associates that he wanted to impregnate about 20 girls at the same time. And his aim was to allegedly seed the human race with his DNA. This was later confirmed by the New York Times, Scientific American, and many other channels. Thank God. Now here's where it gets more disturbing, that everything that Epstein is doing with his pedophilia is somehow connected to a larger scheme. Take the Zorro Ranch, for example. This is nowhere else other than strategically placed very close to America's most top-secret nuclear labs in Mexico, Los Alamos. While there are no official records as to who actually helped Epstein acquire this land in the first place, again, Benashi has also suggested that even this placement of Epstein's Zorro Ranch and him impregnating 20 girls at the same time, most likely minors, seeding the human race with his DNA, had something to do with a strategic political plan, a much larger plan. Some have also speculated that this ties to Israel to larger, control and genetic goals. This really strange thing that they have. It echoes past Zionist and settler ambitions to increase their population by impregnating as many Americans as possible. There is no on-paper evidence of this, but there is a lot of suggestive evidence that points to this, and Epstein being there, very close to a nuclear lab. It just all seems too impossible to ignore. There are too many dots that could be connected. So yeah, while this might be speculation, but you can definitely draw your conclusions from it. It's not that hard to connect the dots. Now, many would ask, why am I telling you this now? Or why is it exploding now? It is because when Biden was in office and Trump was running for office, the Republicans made a huge deal about why the diplomats are not revealing the Epstein files. Why? And as soon as we come to office, this is what Trump said, and not in these exact words, obviously, but they implied that the people would have full disclosure on the Epstein files, just like the JFK files and so on and so forth. But now suddenly, it's all falling on Pam Bondi. It's all falling on the fact that, no, there's nothing to see here. Just this ideology of trust me, bro. It's fine. There's nothing to see in the Epstein files. There are no Epstein files. Just the claims change every day.
It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
So now the people, and mostly Trump supporters, who have this in their nature, that once they do hold on to something, they stick to it. So they're saying, what the hell? You were just stringing us along because we voted for you. One of the very big reasons is full disclosure, and that you would be, frankly, very blunt about everything. But you're not. So what are you hiding? And then Elon Musk drops this bombshell that, oh, Trump is in the Epstein files. Now, there's no proof that Trump did any wrongdoing or was he involved in it with any minors. There's no proof of any of this. That is the point, though, that the Epstein files, once they would be released, would clarify a lot of things. But they're not having those released. So the question is Trump protecting himself or somebody else? And if he is, what is he protecting? And personally, I don't even think this ends at just this deviant behavior. I think this is a huge web of lies that is finally crashing down, and nobody knows what to do. That is why Trump posted, I think, 20-something or just a lot of tweets in one day to keep distracting people from this. Whenever this news breaks out, there's 1,000 tweets, and it's just don't look here. There's nothing to see here. Look somewhere else. No, well, that's gonna make people want to look more, because as a crisis manager, I know that it may sound very simple, but honesty is genuinely the best policy, because otherwise you just look very silly. And people are not dumb. I feel like Trump just thinks his followers are dumb. They're not dumb. They're clocking on to this phony behavior. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to give you knowledge, because knowledge is power. And the people are not stupid. They know, they understand. We know our followers understand. Everybody understands that some things just need to be told, because this is not just about America. It is not just about Israel. It is not even just about the West. It has everybody involved, because if you keep letting power get away without any accountability, the amount of middle fingers they have thrown at the public is beyond comprehension. This whole episode was 1% of everything that is going on. So I would like to go into it deeper, but I have to point out that the main source of everything is going to be in our newsletter on Farm Media World. I'm going to put the link in our description. So you should go to our newsletter, visit it, because all the deep investigations are over there with receipts. And the Epstein article is going to come out very soon. But unfortunately, it's not going to be free, because independent journalism does need your support. We do not have billionaires backing us. We do not have politicians backing us. If anything, they are stacked against us. We are facing a constant threat by reporting this with no funding. So yeah, we would love for your support, and we would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Instagram for instant news bites, and subscribe to our newsletter, farmmedia.substack.com, where all these investigations are going to be very clear to you. You can take those reports, fact check them, keep them with you, and please drop us a comment of whatever else you want to see, what you like, what you're thinking. We're always open to hearing more from you. And now I would like to wrap this up. Thank you so much for being here with us. We will see you in our next episode on Decoded by Farm Media World. I'm Fatma Zahwar. It's lovely having you here.